So the floor is all yours now.
Okay. Good evening, okay, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, everyone, okay, to this section. Just let me very briefly introduce myself. My name is Raymond Lau Kwun-Sun. Originally, I was born and raised in Hong Kong. Currently, I'm working as an assistant professor of political science at the North-South University here in Bangladesh. So this is really my honors and pleasure to chair this section for this evening on Nepal's economic diplomacy. So today, again, we are going to have 5 speakers for this section. So we've got Mr. Chandra Ghimire, who served as the Secretary of Commerce of the government of Nepal. Dr. Kalpana Khanal, who is a Senior Research Fellow at the PolicyResearch Institute. Dr. Aparna Singh and Jharana Dhinda, who are based at the Central University of Jharkhand. Pratiksha Ghimire, who serve in the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, who are joining us here for this section. So may I first invite Mr. Chandra Ghimire for his presentation. So you will have like 10 to 15 minutes. 12 minutes, okay, make it more precise. You have 12 minutes for your presentation. So is Mr. Chandra Ghimire here?
Shall I start?
Yes, please. Feel free to start. If you have any PowerPoint slides to share, also please feel free to do so.
No, this is just my remarks or my observation. That
sure, yeah, please.
I'm going
go
to
ahead, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. In the current globalized world, what I have seen, international trade has been a most pressing issue. And this is not only for Nepal, also for all countries around the world. If we look back 2016, then World Economic Forum was held, and that meeting had enlisted international trade in our list of top 10 pressing issues of the globe. That proves the significance that international trade has occupied in the current global affairs. So that's why the topic itself is very much important, that we all know. Since Nepal is a landlocked country, international trade is a highly prioritized agenda for us. At the same time, it is tied up with the country's legitimate transition concerns. It's because we are a landlocked country. This is to promote the country's exports, at the same time also to maintain supply system in the market. Today in this discussion, our focus is not to cover the entire gamut of the international trade, rather to focus on trade facilitation. I would like to limit myself to that domain, trade facilitation. Trade facilitation deals with the cross-border movement of goods and services that we all know. I'm not going into details of that matter. Naturally, international trade facilitation falls in the active menu of Nepal's economic diplomacy. We can discuss what are the success stories or what are the failures at length, definitely, if time permits. Here, a question may arise to what extent Nepal's diplomacy has been playing a successful role in the trade facilitation to her best interest. This may be a political question, this may be an economic question, and also an academic question. But putting this concern aside, if we compare it to the past, our current status with the past, country has achieved a good progress in cutting import cost by lowering tariff level, especially after its accession to WTO, and achieved a good progress in removing procedural requirements and also in improving transportation and logistics services. But question again may arise, is that enough? Of course not. If we rely upon an OECD index, there is one index OECD has developed, and that encompasses altogether 11 criteria when it comes to defining trade facilitation. I'm not going into that detail, but so we stand somewhere at the bottom of that index. So that gives a bleak picture about our current status. And this is not only the status of Nepal, also the entire South Asian countries. We are lagged behind if we compare ourselves with even Southeast Asian countries and other parts of the world. We are lagged behind. So that's why the importance of trade facilitation is very, very high, and we have to give this concern our utmost attention. In all this, what I would like to say, apart procedural parts in trade facilitation, physical infrastructures are key to excel our status, like ports, dry ports, ICPs, ICDs, roads, railways, godown, CFS, etc., etc. Though they are not included in the OECD criteria, but we have to keep them in our active mind and in our active planning process. While talking of trade facilitation, generally what I see, mistakenly we often adhere the trade facilitation to foreign ministry. This is not a good idea, or this is not a complete process. Multiple agencies are involved in the process of trade facilitation. It ranges from government to non-government. It ranges from Commerce Ministry to physical infrastructure and other ministry. It ranges from executive to judicial sector. So different agencies are involved in trade facilitation. So once we raise jointly our action and the position by actively engaging all agencies, only then we could improve our status in the comparison of other countries and in the comparison of our own past status. But of course, trade facilitation is same time a part of a diplomatic game by and large, since it goes cross-border. So to that extent, I have no any disagreement. Despite all, some people, now I'm coming to Nepal's status regarding trade facilitation. Despite all, some people have an impression that Nepal has paid greater attention in the import side rather than export side. So to me, it sounds a valid observation to some extent. If we look at the statistics, the number of days required in import and the number of days required in export are uneven. Generally, a study of 2015 says export of Nepal takes to reach Calcutta port, which is one of the gateways. It takes 40 days, 40 days, whereas Bhutan case and India case takes 38 days and 16 days respectively. while importing, it takes for Nepal 39 days, and it takes for Bhutan and India 37 days and 20 days, respectively. So if we look at, or if we compare with our recent past, it had been 41 days in the case of India, and it had been 37 days in the case of Bhutan in 2006. So meaning that they have, especially India has significantly improved their status. Whereas if we look at our status, we have not that much progress in this regard. So that's why there are plenty of scope or plenty of rooms where we should pay our much greater attention. Perhaps this is one of the reasons why Nepal's trade competitiveness has been poor, and it has weakened our competitiveness also in our international trade. And consequently, we are having soaring and roaring trade deficit over the last some years, so which is still on. Now I'm touching upon an ambition of Nepal to graduate itself from the LDC constituency to join Developing Countries Club, which is very, very fresh news recently in our newspapers. If goes well everything, then in 2026, Nepal will be officially graduated. Afterwards, Nepal will be losing all the LDC's privileges and rights being enjoyed as of now. In other words, Nepal's trade sector will suddenly come under mounting pressure of other competitors to sustain her exports in her export destination countries. For survival, she will have to significantly cut down her cost being involved in different strata of trade facilitation. Otherwise, the country will merely be a loser in the future. So here, our economic diplomacy should act upon, to my mind. So now I stop, and later on, say if there any question or query, definitely I would come back again. Thank you so much. Mr. Chair.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Here I have stopped.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chandra, for your sharing. It's definitely a very thank you for your insightful analysis, and this is definitely a historic moment, okay, for the Nepal, right? I mean, for the national history of Nepal, right? To have such a remarkable achievement. And now, may I invite Dr. Kalpana Khanal. She has received her MA and PhD in economics, okay, from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and she is now serving as a senior research fellow at the Policy Research Institute. May I invite Dr. Kalpana Khanal for giving a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have prepared a few slides, and let me see if I can share it.
Please feel free to share.
Okay. Give me a second. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Kalpana Khanal, and currently I'm at Policy Research Institute, and I joined PRI 4 months ago. Before that, I was in United States, and I was an associate professor of economics, and I taught money and banking, international, global finance, international economics, and public finance. So our previous speaker, Mr. Ghimire, brought his hands-on experience related to trade. Now I bring my overall observation based on my teaching and my research experience here at PRI. And at PRI, we have 5 different research centers and 2 centers, namely Center for Economic and Infrastructure Development and Center for Foreign Policy and Strategic Affairs. These 2 centers look into issues of economic diplomacy as well. So that's where I bring my perspectives from. So, you know, these days, right, modern day diplomacy is guided by economic interest. All of us know that. And, you know, and economic diplomacy is not a zero-sum game. And as Mr. Ghimire mentioned, trade is a big topic, and there has to be an intersection of, you know, various ministries, including foreign ministry, which can, you know, play important role with respect to economic diplomacy. And history also shows that trade is a prerequisite to maintain peace and security between different nations, right? So we have historical evidences of Mesopotamian civilization and Chinese Silk Route, right? All these trade routes were used for maintaining peace and security around the world. So, you know, this is sometimes, you know, in IR, they say that today's diplomat should be more like an economist, business person, investor, or more like a global salesman, because they have a significant role in promoting trade. So, you know, how can economic diplomacy be used to conduct proactive and pragmatic trade facilitation, right? So economic diplomacy could be used in various ways. One could be bilateral diplomacy, regional diplomacy, multilateral, and conference diplomacy, right? And Mr. Ghimire talked about LDC graduation and all that, but we can also talk about different trade-related treaties with different countries such as India, China, and regional trade agreements such as SAFTA, BIMSTEC, etc., right? So all of these are different ways to promote trade through economic diplomacy. And so there's this intersection of economic diplomacy and trade facilitation. So they are not, you know, completely two different things. There's intersection. And likewise, in modern times, public diplomacy and diaspora diplomacy, because sometimes in order to promote trade and tourism, things like that, you know, Nepalese in diaspora can also be very beneficial in order to understand, you know, how different countries work, how the culture is like. So in order to promote our trade, as well as, you know, bring in FDI, all of these different tools of economic diplomacy has to be leveraged. And when it comes to promoting, you know, trade in Nepal, right? So Nepal has some comparative advantages. This goes back to David Ricardo's theory of comparative advantage. Why would one country buy from other country? And basically it's based on this concept of comparative advantage. So what are some of the advantages that Nepal can leverage, right? So one of the advantages is the geographical dividend that Nepal has. We are, you know, strategically located between two huge economic giants, right? India and China. So we have this geographical location as a dividend. And likewise, you know, which is fresh in the oven, right? The news of LDC graduation, but we can still leverage the LDC privileges until 2026. That's when Nepal will completely graduate out of the LDC status. Likewise, Nepal is a very young country, meaning our population, majority of our population is very young. So we have this demographic dividend, right? So we can leverage the young labor, which is migrating to other countries. If we can bring in, some factories, FDIs to Nepal, then we can leverage this labor, which now goes, to other countries. We can actually provide them employment at home. And the goods and services that are produced within Nepal then can be exported to other nations based on the demand and needs. Likewise, we have some resource dividends, such as steel, outside of Kathmandu Valley or the mega cities, the major metropolitan cities in Nepal. There's still availability of land, and also there are some provision of SEZ or special economic zones, which can be leveraged for bringing in, FDIs, foreign companies. Likewise, Nepal is rich in water resource, right? So hydroelectricity is a big thing. And so trading hydroelectricity is a big possibility for Nepal. And all of us know about this, right? And recently, Nepal also signed some MOU with India for hydroelectricity trade, right? And with MCC, that's another discussion, like if it gets passed, then there will be further opportunity for hydroelectricity trade. Likewise, Nepal is a small country, but the diaspora is very rich. Nepalese have reached like many countries around the world, and we can leverage this diasporic dividend for our trade benefits. Likewise, we can see that, Nepal has signed bilateral agreements with several countries, including India, right? So with India, Nepal has signed several trade and treaties. I'm not gonna name them all, but what I'm trying to bring in here is that, so Nepal receives special treatment in these agreements, most favored nation treatment from countries like India, China, etc., right? And Nepal gets duty-free access in several products, especially agriculture-based products such as vegetable fat and zinc oxide, so to name a few, right? But the thing is that we have not been able to leverage all of these benefits we have been receiving out of these agreements. So this is where I see the role of our diplomats, so they need to go and talk to diplomats in these nations so that we can actually utilize the concessions that we are already receiving. That's the caveat there. Like in paper, we have signed agreements, we are receiving, special treatments, most favored nation treatment, etc. But it's up to us to produce these goods and services, that are getting duty-free access, right, in trade, when it comes to trade. So it's up to us, and that's where economic diplomacy can play a role to promote trade. Likewise, so that's India and now China, right? So when Nepal faced a huge earthquake in 2015, right? Two earthquakes in 2015, Nepal also faced a trade blockade with India, and that's when China stepped in, and Nepal signed this bilateral agreement on transit with China, right? And now China is also giving special treatment to Nepal in order to facilitate trade and transit. So this is where we have, space that we can leverage. India and China, they are relatively close, and we need to exploit and leverage these opportunities. But, as Mr. Ghimire mentioned earlier, because of our landlockedness, we may not be super competitive, but we can find certain niche products, that India cannot produce or China cannot produce, that we can actually, leverage the niche products, such like maybe our tea, right? Right now, usually like Nepali tea, which is grown in the eastern parts of Nepal, right? The orthodox tea, if we can find market yes, special market in India, China, as well as some other foreign countries that could be hugely beneficial for Nepal, as well as Nepal produces high value products such as cardamom, ginger, etc. Right? And we do pretty good in terms of production, but finding that niche market outside of Nepal, I think, our economic diplomacy can play a role in finding that niche market and strengthening that market. Nepal also gets some special treatment with other countries such as, Australia, Canada, European Union, etc. under everything but arms initiative. So we need to leverage that kind of benefit we are already receiving. Similarly, United States also provides duty-free treatment to Nepal, specifically after the 2015 earthquake. And this kind of special treatment Nepal is going to receive until December 2025. And things like leather, footwear, textile, etc. Probably that's where our Gold Star product, right? Gold Star shoes is now being marketed in United States. So, the step taken by Gold Star is huge. And if Nepal can be a hub for footwear production or leather goods production, right, then that could, transform our economy. So we need to leverage these kind of provisions provided by different countries around the world. And similarly, going back to what Mr. Ghimire mentioned, LDC, right, graduation. So with LDC, Nepal has been receiving certain privileges, right? And one of the privileges, LDC countries receive is the privilege of intellectual property rights. So LDC countries are exempt of certain protocols under, these intellectual property rights. And specifically when it comes to pharmaceutical products, right, this kind of exemption holds true until January 2033. Recently, during the COVID pandemic, we are still in the pandemic, but during the first and second wave of pandemic, Bangladesh was able to leverage this kind of exemption that was provided under pharmaceutical, like to LDC for pharmaceutical products. So, this medicine that all of us heard during the pandemic, remdesivir, right, which is actually produced by Gilead Sciences in Foster City, California, right? Bangladesh was able to use this exemption under TRIPS, right? And it produced generic brand of this medicine remdesivir. So these, as LDC, if we can leverage these kind of exemptions, right, then we can move one step ahead in terms of promoting our trade. So this is something we can learn from countries like our neighbors like Bangladesh. And also, there were 3 criteria, right, for LDC graduation. And the 3 criteria are human capital, right? So the pass mark for human capital was 66 and Nepal received 71.2. The second is vulnerability index. And, the pass mark was Nepal, anyone had to receive below 32 and Nepal received 28.4. So Nepal passed under these 2 indicators. But the third one, which is gross national income, right? So GNI, the pass mark is 1222, but Nepal now stands at 1058, right? So Nepal, there's still room for Nepal to increase its GNI, gross national income. And by promoting trade, facilitating trade, right, Nepal can achieve this goal. So that's where I see economic diplomacy can play a role. And with LDC graduation, as Mr. Ghimire mentioned, we will lose some, special treatments that we used to receive. But, he kind of portrayed a grim reality but I see there could be a bright future because of this graduation, right? In terms of bringing FDI. And another thing we can do, our economic diplomacy, like our diplomats can do is, this 12th ministerial conference, MC12, is taking place from 30th November to 3rd December 2021 in Geneva. So during this conference, if our diplomats, if our representatives can actually negotiate with WTO partners to continue the privileges we have been receiving, right, then we will not lose at large. So that's the step we can take. That's where economic diplomacy can come in. Similarly, with graduation, I see more opportunities when it comes to foreign direct investment. And I was looking at what are some of the provisions that exist in order to promote FDI in Nepal. And is a bunch of, acts, provisions that already exist. So everything, like most of the things we need already exist. But the thing is, on the implementation side, we lag behind. And that's where economic diplomacy can come in. That's where, this Foreign Investment and Technology Transfer Act. So all these acts are there, right? So
sorry to interrupt. Can you, Doctor, can you start making your concluding remarks?
Okay, I'll conclude soon.
Yeah, thank you.
So, so there's a big step we can take in terms of economic diplomacy, in order to facilitate trade as well as to leverage the benefits we will receive as we graduate as a LDC. And here are some of the gaps in economic diplomacy we can improve. On the organizational side, people, human capital side, and structural side. And that's how I end my presentation here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Let me stop sharing.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kalpana Khanal, for your very insightful, informative analysis on the economic diplomacy of Nepal. And so now, may I invite Dr. Aparna Singh and Jharana Dhinda, who are based at the Central University of Jharkhand in India. So they are going to give us a presentation on India-Nepal economic relations, okay, in the 21st century. Yeah, and Dr. Singh and Jharana Dhinda, yeah, you guys can feel free to start. Okay. Okay, it seems like one speaker is having some technical issues, so not able to unmute. Just a minute. Hey, can you unmute yourself? Okay, maybe in the meantime, or can I invite Pratiksha Ghimire to give her presentation first, who is based, I think who works in the Ministry of Industry,
Jharana,
Commerce.
now you can unmute yourself.
Hello. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, it's Miss Pratiksha Ghimire here.
Hello. Yes, I'm. Thank you, Chair. Should I go
Yes,
with
yeah.
the presentation or should we wait for Dr. Jharana.
Maybe in the meantime, perhaps you can
Okay, thank you so
give your
much.
presentation first, okay, and we can make a switch of all the. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, feel free.
I have a slide to share with
Yeah,
everyone.
please, feel free.
Yeah, I'll continue with my presentation. Is my slide visible?
Yes. Opportunities in international trade and role of diplomacy. Yeah, yes. Yeah, feel free.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
please
hello
start.
everyone. I'm Pratiksha Ghimire, currently working as section officer with Government of Nepal, posted at Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Supplies. However, today my presentation is on my individual capacity and I'm not representing my institution. To begin with my presentation, I'd like to thank organizers for giving me this opportunity for this wonderful conference. And I like to start my presentation with introduction. International trade. What is international trade? I don't have to explain this to everybody. It is just it is the exchange of goods and services across the border. And basically, international trade regime is guided by multilateral, bilateral, and regional trade agreements. Businesses, private entities that forms the international supply chains and uh, provides goods and services across the globe. Context of Nepal, talking about the context of Nepal, Nepal is a part of WTO regime since 2004 and regional trade agreements like SAFTA. And uh, we have a lot of bilateral trade agreements with the countries that we deal with. Um, Basically, the trade, majority of Nepal's trade is with India and especially guided by the Trade and Transit Treaty. Uh, Nepal exports unprocessed and raw goods to Nepal, and you can see in the picture um, that our most of our trade is with India, and other markets of our exports include European market and the United States. So basically, a few challenges and problems we have already discussed in earlier presentations also. And my presentation will focus on the opportunities that lies ahead of us in coming days. Service trade is one of those opportunities that is with us as in terms of export trade in international market service international market trend itself is moving towards shifting towards service trade and service industry is growing. We all know that today's new economy is about knowledge, about skill based economies and activities. So these provide a very good opportunities for Nepal international export trade. Online internet-based products and services and outsourcing services uh, is one of the very interesting opportunities that lies ahead of us, which helps us to defy our landlockedness that we have been talking about since a long time now, and we have been pulling ourselves back because of that and losing our competitiveness. However, internet-based and outsourcing services, this sector, business process outsourcing sector, online services is one of those opportunities that can help us grow hand in hand with our competitors in international market. And once we start processing our goods and exporting semi-processed goods, we will have opportunities in the diversified markets other than India, in the European market, and also in many other countries which we have not yet tapped our potentials from. I'd also like to talk about opportunities coming out from graduating from LDCs. Earlier speaker, Dr. Kalpana Khanal, also mentioned a lot of bright sides to graduating from LDCs that we can have. One of those would be a better international credit facilities for our private sector businesses, and also graduation from LDC will give out positive message for likely investors in future. And also, as Kalpana ma'am already talked about growing Nepali diaspora in various countries, I'll also like to focus on the opportunities that lie for us in that arena. Growing Nepali diaspora takes to exchange of cultures, traditions, and values, and creates demand for Nepali product and services abroad. We all know how much demand Nepali products have in Australian market and United States market, just because of the larger population of Nepali diaspora in those countries. So these also create opportunities for us in coming future. So where does the role of diplomacy comes in to tap these opportunities for us? I'll further discuss on those lines. So diplomacy includes our relevant diplomatic institution being mobilized, focusing on trade. For example, our missions abroad can have trade support desk, trade attaches if required, and trade wings for collecting trade intelligentsia and other trade related information, and facilitating in trade, facilitating for exporters in those countries. Likewise, in multilateral forums, we can table our national trade interest and agendas and negotiated on those lines. Uh, Talking about the LDC graduation, we can further our interest on transition period, maybe which was initially 3 years, and then we got a 5 years transition period until 2026. So if required, we can negotiate further for the transition period. And as Dr. Kalpana mentioned earlier, we can also negotiate for other related agendas for LDC graduation in multilateral forums like WTO. Likewise, bilateral trade negotiations, which we will require in coming days, to a lot of them to talk with countries to continue our concessions that they have been providing with us. For example, Japan is a very good friend of ours, and uh, it does not need us to be LDC to give us concession on trade related on trade tariffs and other barriers. So those kind of negotiations can be helpful in coming days to further our trade interest and continue exporting our products and services to the world market. Likewise, talks, negotiation meetings for garnering foreign direct investment in various sectors and industries would should be the focus of our diplomacy in coming days. And uh, and garnering foreign investments should be priority as we move on to diversifying our products and services to the world market. Further to our focus on diplomacy, uh, regarding the policy level focus, I think increased coordination and collaboration between relevant policy making institutions such as the trade related ministry, which is the Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Supplies, and Foreign Ministry, and any other relevant ministry based on the issues and agenda. The coordination and collaboration between these policy making institutions would be increased in coming days as a part of diplomacy and the focus of diplomacy to promote trade. One example I'd like to talk on this policy level collaboration is like linking trade with tourism. Like for example, we have Nepal has been talking about tourism since a long time now, and we can attach our artistry or souvenir industry with the tourism industry, and then promote both of it collaboratively, and make strategies to promote them together. So this kind of efforts and this kind of uh, efforts in this direction should be the focus of diplomacy, and to achieve the opportunities, to grab the opportunities that lies in front of us. Also, in today's time, it is very important that we focus on people to people diplomacy, especially the country like Nepal, where which we do not have a very high profile diplomacy agendas or high profile interests to be pursued in the international arena. People to people diplomacy, especially in the context that we have a grown diaspora across the globe, is very important. Working on creating nation as a brand is something I believe Nepalese diplomacy should focus on. For example, we have been selling our products in the international market with the messaging of from Himalayas, from the land of Gorkhas or from the land of Buddha. You know, we have been uh, selling our products in these lines, and I see there are more opportunities coming ahead in terms of new trends in market. For example, selling stories. Nowadays, market not only looks for products, but the stories that lies behind those products. For example, plant-based fibers, sustainable fashion, indigenous products that comes out of indigenous communities. For example, in Nepal's case, Raute communities produce these wooden items which are really pretty and likable. So handmade products, products that empower women, products that give back to farmers and producers, like pashmina or changra pashmina for that matter. So tapping onto new trends in market and where these markets are which direction the market is going, and what kind of products we have and we can sell it to international market. I think that should be the focus of diplomacy in today's time. And this also involves engaging our diaspora in a larger policy level and support level, to get support, to get results. For example, prominent individuals in the diaspora community, I can name few: Prabal Gurung in the fashion industry, and Santosh Shah, who has risen to fame currently in the culinary and cuisine industry. These people can promote, can be a very important aspect of our engagement with the diaspora, and they can promote Nepal and Nepali products to the international market, and so that we can export as per the demand that is created through these exercises. uh, Another important aspect that I think is very important, diplomacy should focus on, is the use of technology and social media platform to inform, educate the world audiences about Nepal, not only Nepal but Nepali products and the stories that are behind those products and that we have and that can be sellable. So people to people diplomacy would be a very important tool and area for Nepal's economic diplomacy at large to explore. And in the end, I'd like to conclude by saying that international trade has always been an important area for Nepal's economic diplomacy. But today, now it is a very favorable time, and as we have a whole new entrepreneurial generation with us, a youth dividend we have with us, and those who are powered by access to education, set of skills acquired from abroad, easy access to internet, among others. So it is right time to place trade as Nepal's diplomacy most prominent and important aspect, and promote uh, our products, our exports in the international market. So with this, I'd like to conclude my presentation, and thank you everyone for listening and your time and your patience. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Pratiksha, Gimi, okay, for in your very insightful analysis on these different aspects of Nepal's economic diplomacy and how Nepal can maximize its comparative advantage in this area. So now may I invite Dr. Aparna Singh and Jharana Dhinda, okay, giving the presentation on the India-Nepal economic relations in the 21st century.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes,
Am I
yes,
audible?
yes.
Good evening, all of you, respected chair. And due to some unavoidable circumstances, Dr. Aparna is not there here. And on behalf of her, I am presenting our joint paper, Understanding India-Nepal Economic Relations in 21st Century, an overview. Firstly, As we know that in the present day world, foreign trade, economic interdependence plays a significant role in the economic development of many countries. And it is also clear in the international scenario that there is no permanent enemy and no permanent friend. Only interest is permanent. But the India and Nepal enjoyed a unique bilateral ties in the sphere of political, economic, cultural, and so on. And they also signed the Treaty of Peace and Friendship in 1950s. And in the same way, they also signed the Treaty of Trade and Transit. But initially, in the infrastructural structure in Nepal, there is no that much development, and there were no routes outside the Kathmandu Valley also, except on foot. There were no other means for the people in different parts of the country to visit Kathmandu. And the common mass of Nepalese population also did not even have access to modern health and education facilities. And concerning that, understanding Nepal's zeal to change its primitive economy into a vibrant economy, India started supporting Nepal in its drive for modernization since the early 1950s. Because economic development remains one of the driving force for every country. And India also constructed Nepal's first highway, Tirupur-Rajpur, to link Kathmandu to Birgunj through the most difficult rugged hill region of the country. And during the last 7 decades also, the economic cooperation between Nepal and India, there is virtually no important sector in which India did not support Nepal, whether it is development of roads, railway, airport, education, health, power, and so on. Though there are so many political instability and obstacles, as Maoist insurgency in 1996 to 2006, and earthquake in Nepal in 2015, and the Madhes movement also in the same year. Following that, Nepal's rate of economic growth fell too low. But the question comes, had there been a floating exchange during that period, the value of Nepalese currency could have crashed. But this did not happen mainly due to the pegging agreement between the two countries. But in the 21st century, the economic relations between India and Nepal took a new turn following the China's growing presence in Nepal. And it also remains a serious threat for the treaty of peace and friendship of Nepal. Yes, the China's presence is not new, but more importantly, and contrary to how it is portrayed in Nepal, but it is not entirely positive. But it is more important for both India and Nepal to work cooperatively for the development of both Nepal's development. But on the other hand, Nepal and China have both made it clear that they are working towards a serious engagement with the other. And during the Prime Minister Khadaga Prasad Sharma Oli's recent visit to China, and South Asian expert in Beijing who since then said that our one means China's policy is clear. If you means India want to work with us, you are welcome. If not, then at least don't obstruct our art. But the India also continuously supported Nepal following the Treaty of Peace and Friendship in 1950. Even though China's growing presence in Nepal obstruct the relationship between India and Nepal. Immediately after the coronavirus pandemic, also in the joint after the JC meeting, India provided important the Nepalese and India reviewed an all-important gamut of bilateral issues in the sixth meeting of the Nepal India Joint Commission in New Delhi on 15 January 2021, where they discussed in the forum ranging from COVID-19 vaccine to boundary and border management, connectivity, economic cooperation, trade, power, water resources, culture, and so on. And just after the JC meeting, Commission meeting between India and Nepal, India provided million doses of Oxford AstraZeneca commercial vaccine to Nepal as grand assistance to generate goodwill among the Nepalese people who are promoted by Serum Institute of India and the largest vaccine in the world. And the government also supported and appreciated India this for that. It China in good neighborly relationship with Nepal.
Okay, it seems like internet connection was lost. I think please. Are you still here? Jharana, Dhinda? I think we can't actually hear you very clearly. You're not 100% audible to.
Am I audible, sir?
Now, yes. Please continue. If you can please speak a little bit louder so that we can hear you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And after the Joint Commission meeting between India and Nepal, there is a thing that India has to give a jolt to which is expanding its footprint all over in Nepal. As per some China, Nepal provision of Junoplan, but the Nepali government has not yet been permission for its implant. Therefore, it is high time for India how to think of how to counter China in Nepal and to strengthen Indo-Nepal economic cooperation in the years to come. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Harena Dhinda, okay, for your presentation, okay, on the Indian-Nepal economic relations in the 21st century. Okay, it doesn't seem like Ambassador Lucky Sharpa is here with us this evening. Right, is Ambassador Lucky Sharpa here? Yeah, it doesn't seem like she is here with us this evening, although supposedly she is one of the panelists for this section. Okay, anyway, so thank you everyone. Thank you all the panelists today for giving their very insightful analysis, okay, on the economic diplomacy, okay, and the international trade facilitation of Nepal. Again, as our panelists, okay, have rightfully suggest, okay, Nepal has just reached, okay, a very has achieved a very remarkable achievement. Has made a very remarkable achievement in terms of graduating, okay, from the least developed countries category, and it doesn't seem like, okay, there's any questions coming from on the floor, but maybe if I can just ask, okay, one question if I can, okay, and probably all of the panelists can share their views. And my question perhaps is, in your opinion, okay, how can a landlocked country like Nepal can maximize, okay, its geographical location in terms of, again, carrying out this economic diplomacy so as to maximize the benefits for its people? Yeah, any panelists would like to share, like the geographical location of Nepal, or the nature of Nepal as a high landlocked state? How can Nepal make use of this as an advantage for maximizing its economic diplomacy? Yeah, please, any panelists, feel free to share his or her view.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, please. Mr. Ghimire, please, feel free.
Thank you so much. Just 2-3 instances I would like to present over here. Let me start with the typical advantage that lie with us. We are in between two giant markets of the world, India and China. So being having that advantage, what we could do is we could bridge the two giant market, India and China. That is number one. And then number two, regarding that, Nepal can be a transit country and could facilitate trade between the two countries. Of course, so while facilitating the two countries, Nepal also can harness certain amount of advantage out of it. So that is number one. And number two, certain niche product, previous speakers too have flagged up this part already. So if we develop certain competitive niche in those products, we have that advantage and we could harness out of the potential. Number two, like we have all kind of climatic advantage available in our country. For example, from south or from north, if we go upward or go downward, so within a short span, we can have all climatic zone, all kind of climatic zones, meaning that we could produce or grow all kind of fruits or vegetables. That is again another advantage. So regarding this, of course, FDI is needed. Along with FDI, technology is needed. Management know-how is needed. Having said, that is also again another so typical advantage available with us. And the third is certain service sectors are there where we could very easily and within a short span of time excel very quickly, like a tourism, IT sector, certain areas of educational sector are there. So in nutshell, these are what I wanted to say. Of course, if time is permitted, definitely I would again later.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ghimire, for your very insightful analysis and observation. Definitely, again, Nepal as a country which is rich in water resources and some other assets such as the Himalayan medical herbs, right? So these are all these comparative advantage that Nepal has, and then definitely we can see a very bright future lies ahead for Nepal in the years to come. So again, thank you very much, okay, everyone, okay, for joining us this evening, for this very fruitful and insightful discussion, okay, and debate surrounding Nepal's economic diplomacy, international trade, facilitation, and yeah, time is running out for this section. So once again, I would like to thank you everyone again for taking your time in joining this section. And once again, thank you every speaker sharing their views and insights on this very timely and important topic. So I think I will just have to draw this meeting to a close. according to the schedule. So thank you once again, everyone, for attending, and hope yeah, we will see each other again on some other occasions. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.